Station Commander, the human's drone. Assembly has triggered a Level 9. Behavioral anomaly. The Voreth cubs are bypassing their instinctual fear. Response. Vexral's secondary heart. Skipped entirely. Level 9 anomalies. Didn't happen, they couldn't happen. Voreth had spent 3, according to YouTube analytics, 98% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel, that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. Million years evolving threat assessment. Protocols so precise that their cubs would flee from anything larger than themselves. That wasn't blood kin, it was genetic, immutable survival itself. Show me, he said, his voice tight. The security feed materialized above his desk. Station Maintenance Bay 7. The human Diana, the mechanic with a terrible sense of humor, sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by drone components, standard assembly work, nothing remarkable except for the 3 Voreth cubs creeping toward her, their small clawed hands clutching metallic objects. Freeze that. Vexral leaned forward. Magnify section 47. The image expanded. The cubs weren't just approaching, they were presenting. Their ear flaps were forward, their tails high, the universal Voreth signal for safe pack member. They were carrying screws, M4 fasteners by the look of them. How long has this been happening? Morton, his security chief, pulled up a timeline. The approach behavior 17 minutes, but Commander, he hesitated. The cubs have been stealing those screws for 6 days. 6 days, explain. We didn't flag it initially. Voreth young exhibit hoarding behaviors. It's normal development, but when we reviewed the footage after the approach alert, Morton cycled through archived feeds. Day 1. Youngest cub takes 2 screws from maintenance cart. Day 2. Middle cub acquires 3 more from the storage bay. Day 3. Eldest retrieves 4 from the recycling center. They've been hiding them in air duct junction 47. Hoarding materials to present to a non-blood relative, Vexral said slowly. That's impossible, sir. Voreth cubs only gift present to den mothers and pack alphas. It's how they signal acceptance of authority and request protection. There are no exceptions in the literature, none. On the live feed, Diana looked up from her work. She smiled, that strange human expression that showed all their flat teeth, and held out her hand. The cubs chittered and placed the screws in her palm one by one. Oh, Clear's throat, you found the M4s. Diana's voice came through the audio feed, warm and delighted. You little geniuses, I've been looking everywhere for these. Thank you. The cubs purred. Vexral stood so fast his chair tumbled backward. Get Dr. Cathara to my office now, sir. She's already on her way. Those are her cubs, of course. They were. The door chimed 12 seconds later. Dr. Cathara entered with a rigid control of someone barely containing panic. Her credentials preceded her. The station's senior xenopsychologist, author of 17 papers on interspecies behavioral dynamics, specialist Voreth developmental psychology, also a mother watching her children defy evolution itself. Commander, she said, her voice admirably steady, I've reviewed the feeds, all of them. I need to observe directly, explain what I'm seeing first. I can't. The words came out flat, almost mechanical. Gift presentation behavior in Voreth cubs is genetically hardwired. It requires a lactary confirmation of genetic relatedness, auditory recognition of den, specific vocalizations and visual, identification of species appropriate, protective behaviors, the human, satisfies none of these requirements. This shouldn't be possible, and yet Cathara moved to the monitor, her eyes fixed on her cubs. They've been modifying their approach behavior. The footage shows progressive desensitization starting from 30 m away. On day 1, closing to 20 m by day 3, 15 m. Yesterday, they've been practicing. Practicing what? Overriding 3 million years of survival instinct, Kitha's voice cracked slightly. My cubs have decided that the human is safe, not just safe pack. They're treating her as a den mother commander. They're trying to join her family unit on screen. Diana offered the cubs a small propeller blade from her drone assembly. Want to see how this works? It's pretty cool. Watch. The cubs leaned in, their fear response completely absent. The eldest touched the blade with one careful claw, chirping a question. Careful, it's sharp, Diana said, demonstrating the spinning motion with her hand. See, it moves the air, makes things fly. The cubs chittered excitedly among themselves. She's teaching them, Morton said quietly, and they're learning. Alert the council, Vexral said. Full emergency session and get every xenobiologist on this station to maintenance bay 7 if this is spreading. Sir, Morton's screen flashed. It already has. We're registering approach behaviors from Kellen hatchlings in Section 9 and Praxian younglings in Section 12, all converging on the human's location. How many? 14 offspring, 6 different species, all exhibiting den bonding presentation behaviors. Vexral stared at the security feed. Diana had returned to her drone assembly, now surrounded by a small crowd of alien children, each one watching her work with rapt attention. She was humming something, a human melody, discordant to his ears, and occasionally pausing to explain what she was doing. The Vorith cubs sat closest, their tails wrapped around each other, their eyes never leaving her face. Sir, Cathara said softly. Permission to join the observation granted, but doctor, what are we dealing with here? Kitha looked at him, and for the first time since entering he saw genuine fear in her eyes, not of the situation, of the answer. I don't know, Commander, but whatever it is, my cubs trust it more than they trust their own instincts, and I need to understand why. She left quickly, her steps echoing down the corridor. Vexral turned back to the screen. Diana had produced a small magnetic driver and was showing the cubs how to attach a mounting bracket. The eldest cub reached out with careful claws and mimicked her motion. Good job, Diana laughed. You're a natural. Here, try this one. The cub's purr was audible even through the audio feed. Level 9 behavioral anomaly, Vexel thought, but what they really meant was everything we know about child development across species just became obsolete, and the human had no idea she was causing it. Dr. Cathara arrived at Maintenance Bay 7 to find her cubs doing the impossible. They weren't just near the human, they were touching her. The youngest had climbed into Diana's lap, its small body curled against her torso. While she worked, the middle cub leaned against her shoulder, watching her hands. With intense focus, the eldest sat pressed against her leg, its tail draped across her boot. Contact, comfort, den bonding, pack intimacy with a human. Cathara's research tablet nearly slipped from her grip. Oh hey, Diana looked up Still smiling that bizarre tooth-bearing expression. You must be their mom. They're amazing, super smart, really helpful. They brought me all these screws I'd been missing, saved me like 20 minutes of searching. Yes, Kithra managed. I see that. They okay to hang out here? I don't mind. Honestly, it's nice having company. Gets quiet in maintenance sometimes. Diana scratched the youngest cub behind its ear flap, the precise location that triggered endorphin release in Voreth Young. She couldn't possibly know that they're like little engineers already. Watch this. Hey buddy, can you hand me that torque driver? The eldest cub chirped and retrieved the tool from Diana's kit, placing it in her hand with careful precision. Perfect. See naturals. Diana winked at Kithara. You're raising some brilliant kids here. The cubs pined at the praise, their purring intensifying. Kithara's tablet chimed urgently. Biometric data streaming from the cubs. Subcutaneous monitors, stress hormones. Minimal cortisol levels baseline. Oxytocin elevated to levels normally only seen during maternal feeding. They weren't tolerating the human, they were bonding with her. Dr. Kithara Morton's voice came through her comm. We need you to see something. She tore her eyes away from her cubs. What now? The other species, they're not just approaching anymore. Kithara turned through the bay's observation window. She could see them, a cluster of Keline hatchlings, their translucent skin flickering with bioluminescent curiosity patterns. 3 Praxian younglings, their tentacles coiled in the relaxed posture that indicated complete security. 2 Havarian kits, their usually skittish nature entirely absent, all of them waiting at the bay entrance, watching. They want in, Morton said, but they're waiting like they're asking permission. Diana noticed them and waved. Come on in, there's plenty of room. You guys want to see the drone? The flood of younglings was immediate and orderly. No pushing, no aggression, each one finding a spot near Diana, settling into a careful arrangement that respected both her space and each other's species. Specific comfort zones. Wah, okay. Popular today, Diana laughed. Oh, right, let's make this a proper show and tell. Who can tell me what this part does? The Keline hatchlings flashed patterns, their form of speech. Diana clearly couldn't understand them, but she nodded encouragingly. Great guess. It does kind of look like a power cell, doesn't it? But this one's actually the stabilizer gyro. See how it spins? Praxian Young reached out with a tentacle, gently touching the gyro. Exactly, you've got it. The spinning keeps the drone balanced in the air like. Diana paused, thinking like how you folks use your tentacles for balance in Zerog. Same principle, different method. The youngling's skin pattern shifted to bright contentment colors. Kitha's tablet was screaming alerts. She switched to the station-wide monitoring system. Every juvenile on the station was moving toward Maintenance Bay 7. Commander, she said into her comm, her voice barely steady. We have a situation. Escalation. I'm watching it. Vexral replied grimly. 43 younglings now. 8 species, every single one exhibiting presentation behaviors. The parents are losing their minds. Half of them are demanding we remove the human immediately. The other half are demanding we find out what she's doing so they can replicate it. We can't replicate it, Kithara said. I'm watching her work. There's no technique, no methodology. She's just being herself, talking to them, showing them things, treating them like they're clever and capable. That can't be enough. to override species-specific fear. Responses, it shouldn't be, but look at. My cubs, Commander. Kitha zoomed her. Tablet's camera, the youngest had fallen. Asleep in Diana's lap, it's breathing. Slow and rhythmic, my youngest hasn't. Slept outside the family den since. Birth, Voreth cubs don't sleep. Vulnerable ever, their hindbrain won't. Allow it, they're hardwired to stay. Alert until they're in a verified safe. Space with pack protection, and yet he's sleeping in a human's lap in a public maintenance bay surrounded by other species. Kitha's voice cracked. His cortisol levels are lower than when he sleeps with me. Silence on the comm. Diana was now demonstrating the drone's camera system, passing around the small optical sensor so each young could examine it. She'd somehow intuited which ones could handle touch, which needed visual-only observation, and which responded better to verbal description. She was adapting to 8 different species learning styles simultaneously. Without apparent effort, she's teaching them problem-solving, Cathara whispered. Watch, she's not just showing them the parts, she's asking them questions, letting them figure things out, celebrating when they get it right. She's treating them like what? Like how I treat my cubs, like how every parent across every species treats their young when they're nurturing them. She's providing the universal signals of safe adult caregiver. Humans don't have universal anything, Vex said. They're a single planet species with barely 200 years of space travel. They shouldn't understand interesse's developmental psychology at all, let alone she doesn't understand it intellectually. Cathara interrupted. She's not using theory or training, she's just doing it instinctively. On screen, a Havarian kit brought Diana a small pebble, the Havarian equivalent of the Voreth screws, a gift, a trust offering. Diana accepted it with the same delight she'd shown her cubs. Oh, that's beautiful, look at the crystalline structure, that's so cool. Thank you, sweetheart. The kit's fur rippled with pleasure. Commander, Kitha said slowly, what if humans evolved to do this? What if their pack bonding instinct doesn't recognize species barriers because it never needed to? What if they're hardwired to read child as a universal category? That's evolutionarily impossible. So is everything I'm watching right now. Diana had finished assembling the primary drone chassis. She held it up for her audience. Okay, who wants to help test it? We need to make sure all the parts work together. Every single youngling volunteered. All right, Diana laughed. Let's do this scientifically. We'll split into teams. Voreth cubs, you 3 are Team Alpha. You'll monitor the gyro stability. Kelline friends, your Team Beta on visual tracking. Praxians, you've got the best fine motor control. So your Team Gamma on calibration. She was organizing them, creating interspecies cooperation among younglings who shouldn't even be in the same room together without parental supervision, and they were following her lead without question. Dr. Cathara, Vexel's voice was strained. I'm calling an emergency council session. We need every xenobiologist, child development specialist, and behavioral psychologist on this station in the conference room in 1 hour. Understood. And Dr. keep watching her, because either we're witnessing the most significant discovery in interspecies relations in galactic history, he paused, or we're watching the beginning of something we don't have words for yet. Cathara looked At her cubs, working happily alongside. Younglings from 8 different worlds. All of them trusting the human who'd somehow become everyone's denmother in the space of an afternoon. I think it might be both, Commander. The council chamber had devolved into controlled chaos. 47 younglings, the Kelline representative said, their bioluminescence flashing distressed patterns. Every hatchling in our crash has abandoned their light pools. They're waiting outside the maintenance bay. They won't eat, they won't sleep, they just want to be near the human. The Praxian pods are exhibiting the same behavior, another voice added. Our younglings have designated her as first teacher. That's a title reserved for genetic matriarchs. They've created a compound word in our language that translates roughly to mother who teaches all children. Vexro looked at the data stream. Every child development center on the station was reporting the same pattern: abandonment of species-specific comfort behaviors, cross-species socialization, all centered on one human mechanic who thought she was just assembling a drone. Dr. Cathara, he said, your analysis. Cathara stood, her movements precise. Despite obvious exhaustion, I've been observing for 6 hours. The human Diana has created an impromptu learning environment that violates every principle of species segregated child development. She's currently teaching basic mechanical engineering to a mixed group of younglings whose cognitive development stages shouldn't even allow them to interact peacefully, let alone collaborate. She pulled up footage. Diana sat on the floor surrounded by alien children, each one holding a different component of a now disassembled training drone. See this? She's assigned tasks based on species capability. Vorith cubs are handling precision fitting. Their claws give them natural dexterity. Kelline hatchlings are managing optical calibration. Their light sensitivity makes them perfect for it. Praxians are doing structural integrity testing with their tactile tentacles. She's creating multi-species engineering teams from children, Morton said flatly, from children who shouldn't be able to occupy the same space without parental mediation. Cathara zoomed in on a Vorath cub working alongside a Kelline hatchling. My species and theirs have incompatible body temperature requirements. Close proximity causes stress responses, except right now my cub is pressed against a hatchling that's 15 degrees cooler than his comfort range, and his biometrics show 0 distress. How the human is temperature mediating. Watch. Cather played the footage. Diana had positioned herself between the 2 younglings, her body acting as a thermal buffer. She'd done it unconsciously, adjusting her position every few minutes to keep both children comfortable. She's not trained for this, Vexol said. No, she's a mechanic. Her station file lists 0 xenobiology coursework, 0 child development training. She's doing this purely on instinct. The Havarian delegate leaned forward. Our kits brought her there treasures, 7 of them, each one carrying items they'd been hiding in their personal dens. They've never shown them to anyone, not even us. Gift escalation. Cathar confirmed it's the next stage of pack bonding. They're not just accepting her as safe, they're incorporating her into their family structures, and she's reciprocating. More footage. Diana had created small wire sculptures for each youngling, custom designs that reflected their species' aesthetic preferences. The Voreth cubs received geometric spirals. The Kellan hatchlings got light. Refractive crystals, the Praxians. Received tactile puzzles, she's. Researching us, someone whispered. No, Cathara said, she's observing. Them, watching what makes them happy. What they respond to, what they need. Then she's providing it, it's not. Cultural research, it's parental. Attunement, Vexal pulled up the live feed. Diana was now conducting a drone test flight with younglings from 7 species, calling out observations in their native languages. She couldn't possibly understand most of them, but she was nodding, responding, incorporating their input. She's teaching them to communicate with each other, Cather said quietly. They're learning interspecies cooperation because she's treating it as normal, expected, natural. The council needs a recommendation, Vexral said. Cathra looked at her cubs on the screen. Youngest was perched on Diana's shoulder. The middle cub was explaining something to Praxian youngling using gestures Diana had taught him. The eldest was helping a Kellan hatchling adjust a calibration tool. Her babies learning to trust beyond their species, growing in ways she'd never imagined possible, all because a human mechanic had smiled at them and said, "Thank you for some screws. My recommendation." Clear's throat. Cathara's voice was steady. We need to understand this. Document it, because Commander, whatever Diana is doing, it's rewriting everything we know about interspecies relations. And it's doing it through our children. And if we can't understand it, Cathara watched Diana laugh as a youngling successfully launched the test drone, the entire group erupting in species-specific celebrations. You accept it, she said, because our children already have. Diana finally noticed the observation window was crowded with adults. Oh, she looked down at the sea of younglings surrounding her, then back up at the dozens of alien faces pressed against the glass. Is this? Am I in trouble? I can explain. They were just watching, and then they wanted to help, and I didn't think it would be a problem if they. You're not in trouble, Vexral said through the intercom, his voice carefully controlled. We simply need to understand what's happening here. What's happening? Diana blinked. We're testing a drone. The kids have been amazing. Seriously, you've got some incredibly bright younglings here. They've cut my assembly time in half and caught 3 design flaws I completely missed. Cathara stepped forward. Diana may enter. Sure, the more the merrier. The door opened and Cathara stepped through, followed by Vexral and a handful of other council members. The younglings barely glanced at them, focused entirely on Diana's explanation of propulsion. Vectors, my cubs, Cathara said carefully. They've been bringing you gifts. Oh yeah, those screws were super helpful, and look what else they found. Diana gestured to a small collection of items, wire segments, bolts, even this little data chip that I thought was completely lost. They're like little treasure hunters. Do you understand what gift-giving means to Vorath younglings? Diana paused. I mean, they were being helpful, sweet. It means they've claimed you as pack, as family. Oh, Diana looked down at the cubs who were watching her with adoring eyes. Well, I mean, that's really sweet. They're wonderful kids. You should be proud, Diana. Vexal interjected. Vorath cubs are genetically programmed to flee from non-relatives. They cannot override this instinct. It's impossible, huh? Diana scratched the eldest cub's head absently. Well, maybe they just figured out I wasn't going to hurt them. I worked with kids back on Earth. You No, at my Nike school, volunteer stuff, and I always found that if you just treat them with respect and patience, they come around. You worked with human children, Cather said. Well, yeah, but kids are kids, right? They want to learn, they want to be helpful, they want to feel valued. Doesn't really matter what they look like. Diana shrugged. I just treat them like I'd want someone to treat my niece. The council members exchanged glances. Diana, Vexrall said slowly, what? You're describing treating all younglings as fundamentally the same. Regardless of species, that's not how interspecies relations work. Every species has different developmental needs, different social structures. Different, sure, but they're also all just kids. Diana held up the completed drone. Look, I figured out pretty quick that the Kelline friends have better eyesight, so I let them handle the optical stuff. The Praxians have those amazing tentacles, so they're perfect for testing structural integrity. The Vorath cubs have crazy good fine motor control. It's not that complicated. You just pay attention to what they're good at and let them shine. You're describing adaptive child-centered learning, Kithra whispered. Cross-species collaborative pedagogy. That's a theoretical framework we've been trying to implement for decades. I'm describing common sense, Diana said. She looked genuinely confused. You pay attention to kids, you figure out what they need, you give it to them, then you get out of their way and let them be. Awesome, the eldest cub chirped and held up the drone's remote control. You want to fly it? Diana grinned. Okay, but we do it together first, safety first. Right, she knelt down, the cub pressed against her side and guided its claws over the controls. The drone lifted smoothly, hovering at eye level. Every youngling in the room erupted in celebration. Chirps, flashes, tentacle waves, and purr, creating a symphony of joy. Diana laughed. See, told you they were geniuses. Cathar watched her youngest cub climb into Diana's lap, watched her middle cub lean trustingly against the human's shoulder, watched her eldest cub coordinate with a Kelline hatchling to adjust the drone's flight path. Commander, she said quietly. Recommendation revision. Go ahead. We don't study this, we don't dissect it. We don't try to understand it academically. Cathara met Vex's eyes. We just let it happen because whatever Diana's doing, it's working. Our younglings are learning to trust across species barriers. They're cooperating, communicating, building relationships we thought were impossible. Through instinct, Vexrall said. Through humanity, Kithar corrected. Whatever evolved on Earth that makes humans bond across species, we need it. The galaxy needs it. Diana was showing a mixed group how to land the drone safely, her hands gentle, her voice encouraging. Just a mechanic, just a human, just someone who thought kids were kids. Changing everything. 3 weeks later, Maintenance Bay 7 had been officially redesignated as Community Learning Space 1. Diana still called it the shop. All right, team, she said, packing up her tools. Drones done, tested, and ready for deployment. You all did amazing work. Seriously, I'm putting all your names in the commendation report. Younglings, now numbering 63 across 12 species, erupted in proud celebration. Cathara watched from her new observation post. The station had hired 4 additional human mechanics. Each one now had their own helper crew of mixed species younglings. The council was drafting new protocols for interspecies child care. 3 neighboring stations had requested human transfers, all because her cub stole some screws. So Diana stretched. Next project is fixing the cafeteria's ice cream machine. Who wants to help? Every single hand, claw, tentacle, and appendage shot. A perfect. Diana laughed, but warning, it's going to be cold work. Bundle up, friends. The younglings rushed off to prepare, chattering excitedly in a pidgin mix of 8 languages they'd invented themselves. Diana grabbed her toolkit and headed for the door, the Voreth cubs trailing behind her like always. Just another Tuesday, just another impossible thing. Just Diana. Vexrol filed his final report to Galactic Command that evening. Subject: Human Integration Protocol. Revision 7. Conclusion: humanity's greatest weapon isn't their technology, adaptability, or resilience. It's their inability to recognize species barriers when it comes to children. They see younglings as a universal category deserving patience, respect, and encouragement. Recommend immediate expansion of human presence across all multi-SE stations. Not as diplomats, not as mediators, as mechanics, teachers, librarians, mundane roles where they'll naturally interact with our children. They'll do the rest themselves. They always do. He watched Diana disappear around a corner, trailing younglings like a comet's tail. Just a human changing the galaxy, one kid at a